In the quiet hours of a hospital room, an imam's life hangs in the balance. Diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, he slips into unconsciousness, unaware that he's about to embark on a journey that will challenge everything he's ever believed. As we follow his out-of-body experience, we'll witness visions of paradise and hell, encounters with religious figures, and a revelation that will shake the foundations of his faith. This is a story of spiritual transformation that transcends religious boundaries. Rabu Ahmad was more than just an imam. At 67 years old, he stood as a pillar of faith and wisdom in his community, his life a testament to unwavering devotion. For decades, Rabu had guided his congregation through life's joys and sorrows, his gentle voice a beacon of hope in times of darkness. His teachings, steeped in Islamic tradition, resonated with both young and old, bridging generational gaps with timeless wisdom. But even the strongest pillars can be shaken. On a crisp autumn morning, Rabu received news that would test the very foundations of his faith. The doctor's words fell like heavy stones: stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis, so clinical and cold, seemed at odds with the warmth and vitality Rabu had always exuded. In those first moments of shock, Rabu's mind raced through a lifetime of sermons and prayers. He had often spoken of trials as tests of faith, of illness as an opportunity for spiritual growth. Now, faced with his own mortality, those words took on new weight and meaning. Was this Allah's way of testing his devotion? A chance to demonstrate unwavering trust in the face of unimaginable adversity. As days turned to weeks, Rabu's resolve was put to the test. The harsh realities of chemotherapy took their toll, not just on his body, but on his spirit. Nausea and fatigue became constant companions, replacing the familiar routines of prayer and community service. In the quiet hours of sleepless nights, doubt crept in like a shadow. Why had Allah chosen this path for him? What purpose could such suffering serve? Yet even as his body weakened, Rabu clung to his faith like a lifeline. He continued to lead prayers when he could, his voice sometimes faltering but never losing its conviction. His congregation rallied around him, their support a testament to the impact he had made on countless lives. But behind closed doors, Rabu wrestled with fear and uncertainty. The line between acceptance of Allah's will and the very human desire to live blurred with each passing day. As weeks stretched into months, Rabu sensed a turning point approaching. His body, once strong and vital, now felt like a fragile vessel. The cancer had spread, defying the best efforts of modern medicine. In what he believed might be his final hours, Rabu turned to prayer with renewed fervor. No longer asking for healing or understanding, he simply sought guidance. "Allah," he whispered, his voice barely audible in the sterile hospital room. "I submit to your will. Show me the path I must follow." Little did Rabu know that his prayer would be answered in a way he could never have imagined. As consciousness began to slip away, the boundaries between this world and the next blurred. Rabu stood on the threshold of an experience that would challenge everything he thought he knew about faith, life, and the nature of reality itself. The journey that awaited him would shake the very foundations of his beliefs and set him on a path he never could have foreseen. In the blink of an eye, Rabu's perspective shifted dramatically. No longer bound by his failing body, he found himself witnessing a scene that defied logical explanation. How could he be looking down at his own lifeless form? The hospital room erupted into a flurry of activity as alarms blared and medical staff rushed to Rabu's bedside. His vital signs had plummeted without warning, and the monitors showed no signs of cardiac activity. Doctors and nurses moved with practiced urgency, their voices tense as they called out orders and administered emergency procedures. Yet Rabu experienced none of this commotion. Instead, he found himself floating near the ceiling, observing the scene below with a sense of detached curiosity. He watched as his physical body lay motionless on the bed, surrounded by a team working frantically to revive him. The sight was surreal, like watching a movie of someone else's life. As Rabu hovered above, he became acutely aware of a profound sense of weightlessness. The constant pain that had plagued him for months had vanished, replaced by an indescribable feeling of freedom. He felt untethered from the physical world, as if the laws of gravity no longer applied to his consciousness. This detachment brought with it an unexpected calm. The fear and uncertainty that had haunted Rabu throughout his illness seemed to dissolve. In this state, he felt a deep sense of peace, unburdened by the physical and emotional turmoil of his cancer battle. Rabu's attention was drawn to the intricate details of the room he had called home for weeks. He noticed things he had never seen before: the subtle patterns on the ceiling tiles, the worn edges of the medical equipment, the worry lines etched on the faces of the staff fighting to save his life. It was as if his perception had been enhanced, allowing him to take in every nuance of his surroundings. As he continued to observe, Rabu became aware of a soft, warm light emanating from somewhere beyond the confines of the hospital room. It seemed to beckon to him, growing stronger and more alluring with each passing moment. The light radiated a sense of profound peace, unlike anything Rabu had ever experienced. Drawn by an inexplicable force, Rabu felt his consciousness begin to drift towards this realm of light. The hospital room started to fade from view, its sounds growing distant. He stood at the threshold of something vast and unknown, poised between the world he knew and a reality he could scarcely comprehend. As Rabu's spirit was pulled towards this luminous realm, questions raced through his mind. What lay beyond this veil of light? Was this the afterlife he had spoken of so often in his sermons, or something entirely different? The answers to these questions and the revelations that awaited him would challenge the very foundations of his lifelong beliefs. Rabu's journey was about to take him far beyond the confines of his earthly existence, into realms that would test his faith, expand his understanding, and ultimately transform his entire worldview. As he crossed the threshold into the light, he stood on the cusp of an experience that would redefine his perception of life, death, and the nature of reality itself. As Rabu stepped into the light, he expected to find the paradise he had preached about for years, but what awaited him would shatter every certainty he held dear. How could a realm of such beauty harbor a truth so devastating? The luminous expanse that enveloped Rabu radiated a profound sense of peace. It was as if every description of Jannah he had ever shared with his congregation had come to life before his eyes. Lush gardens stretched as far as he could see, their vibrant colors more vivid than any earthly landscape. Crystal-clear rivers flowed beneath his feet, their waters shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The air itself seemed alive with tranquility, each breath filling Rabu with a sense of contentment he had never known. For a moment, Rabu felt a surge of validation. This was the paradise he had devoted his life to attaining. Yet, as he moved deeper into this realm, an unsettling feeling began to creep over him. Something was amiss, a discordant note in this symphony of serenity. Without warning, the scene before him began to shift. The radiant light twisted and darkened, plunging Rabu into a nightmarish landscape that defied comprehension. The gentle warmth of paradise gave way to searing heat that seemed to penetrate his very being. Where moments ago he had witnessed beauty beyond imagination, now he found himself surrounded by scenes of unimaginable torment. Rabu's senses were assaulted by the chaos of this infernal realm. Agonized screams echoed through the air, punctuated by the sound of crackling flames. The acrid smell of smoke and brimstone filled his nostrils, making it difficult to breathe. All around him, he saw souls writhing in pain, their faces contorted in expressions of despair that would haunt him forever. As he witnessed this hellish panorama, Rabu's mind reeled. How could this be? He had always taught that Allah was merciful and just. Yet the suffering he saw before him seemed to challenge everything he believed about divine compassion. The emotional turmoil within him grew, with each passing moment, a maelstrom of confusion, fear, and disbelief. Desperately, Rabu searched for some sign of hope, some explanation for the horrors that surrounded him. It was then that his gaze fell upon a sight that would shake the very foundations of his faith. There, amidst the sea of tormented souls, stood a figure he had revered his entire life, the Prophet Muhammad. But this was not the exalted messenger Rabu had always envisioned. Muhammad stood bound in heavy chains, his face etched with sorrow and regret. The sight was so shocking, so contrary to everything Rabu had ever believed, that he felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. As Rabu stared in disbelief, questions flooded his mind. How could the beloved prophet be in such a state? What could this mean for the teachings he had followed so devotedly? The implications of this vision were staggering, threatening to unravel a lifetime of certainty. In that moment, as Rabu grappled with the profound implications of what he had witnessed, he felt the stirrings of a crisis that would challenge the very core of his being. The journey that lay ahead would force him to confront uncomfortable truths and re-examine everything he thought he knew about faith, divine justice, and the nature of reality itself. The chains that bound Muhammad seemed to tighten around Rabu's own heart. As an Imam, he had spent his life preaching about the exalted status of the Prophet in the afterlife. Now, faced with this harrowing vision, Rabu found himself at a crossroads where centuries of Islamic teachings collided with a reality he could never have imagined. Rabu's mind reeled as he struggled to reconcile what he was seeing with the beliefs he had held dear for so long. In Islamic tradition, Muhammad was revered as the seal of the prophets, a beacon of divine guidance whose place in paradise was assured. Yet here he stood, shackled and suffering, a stark contradiction to everything Rabu had ever taught or believed. As Rabu gazed upon this impossible scene, he felt a desperate need to make sense of it all. Perhaps this was a test of faith, he thought, a divine illusion meant to challenge his convictions. He closed his eyes, willing the vision to disappear, but when he opened them again, the sight of Muhammad in chains remained, undeniable and haunting. The symbolism of the chains weighed heavily on Rabu's consciousness. In his teachings, he had often spoken of spiritual bondage, of the chains of sin that could bind a soul. But to see the most beloved of all prophets bound in this way raised profound and troubling questions. Were these the chains of earthly attachments, of misguided teachings, or something even more unsettling, the weight of divine judgment? As Rabu grappled with these possibilities, he felt the foundations of his faith begin to crack. Questions he had never dared to ask before now surged to the forefront of his mind. How could a just and merciful Allah allow his chosen messenger to suffer such a fate? What did this mean for the promise of paradise that had been the cornerstone of Islamic belief? The implications of this vision extended far beyond personal faith. Rabu thought of his congregation, of the countless souls he had guided based on teachings that now seemed uncertain. If Muhammad himself was not free from divine punishment, what hope was there for ordinary believers? The very nature of divine justice, once so clear in Rabu's mind, now became a murky, unsettling concept. As these thoughts swirled in Rabu's mind, he felt a profound sense of isolation. Who could he turn to with such earth-shattering doubts? How could he even begin to express the magnitude of what he was experiencing? The spiritual certainty that had been his anchor for decades now felt like quicksand beneath his feet. In this moment of crisis, Rabu realized that his journey was far from over. The vision of Muhammad in chains was not just a challenge to his faith, but an invitation to seek a deeper truth. As his long-held beliefs began to crumble, Rabu sensed that he stood on the threshold of a new understanding, one that would require him to question everything he thought he knew about spirituality, divinity, and the nature of reality itself. As the vision began to fade, Rabu felt both a sense of loss and a glimmer of anticipation. The familiar framework of his faith had been shattered, but in its place lay the possibility of a more profound, albeit uncertain, spiritual path. The aftermath of this revelation would shake Rabu to his core, setting him on a journey of discovery that would transcend the boundaries of his former beliefs and open his eyes to truths he had never before imagined. Rabu's eyes fluttered open, the sterile hospital room coming into focus. But something had fundamentally changed. The weight of his vision pressed upon him like a physical force, his mind struggling to process the profound experience he had just undergone. How could he reconcile the spiritual leader he had been with the man he now found himself to be? Confusion and emotional turmoil swirled within him as he tried to make sense of what he had witnessed. The image of Muhammad bound in chains haunted his thoughts, challenging everything he had ever believed about the afterlife and divine justice. Rabu's hands trembled as he reached for the glass of water by his bedside, his body weak but his mind racing with questions that seemed to have no answers. As the days passed, Rabu grappled with the task of reconciling his vision with the faith he had devoted his life to. He pored over Islamic texts, searching desperately for explanations that could align with what he had seen. Perhaps, he thought, there was some obscure hadith or Quranic verse that could shed light on his experience. But with each passing day, the disconnect between his vision and his long-held beliefs only seemed to grow. Rabu found himself trapped in a lonely struggle, unable to share the full extent of his experience with anyone. How could he, and respected Imam, admit to doubts that struck at the very core of Islamic teachings? The few times he attempted to broach the subject with fellow religious leaders, he was met with concerned looks and gentle reminders to focus on his recovery. The isolation grew, a chasm widening between Rabu and the community he had once guided with such certainty. As Rabu lay in his hospital bed, his mind ventured into territories he had never before dared to explore. Questions that had once seemed blasphemous now demanded his attention. Could there be truths beyond the boundaries of his familiar beliefs? What if the afterlife was fundamentally different from what he had always taught? The possibility both terrified and intrigued him, like standing at the edge of a vast, unknown expanse. With each passing day, Rabu felt a growing urge to seek answers beyond the confines of his traditional Islamic education. The realization dawned on him that his spiritual journey was far from over. In fact, it seemed to be taking an entirely new direction. The foundations of his faith, once so solid, now felt like shifting sands beneath his feet. Yet amidst the uncertainty, a small spark of excitement ignited within him. The thrill of seeking a deeper, more profound understanding of the divine. As Rabu's health slowly improved, so did his resolve to embark on a quest for truth, wherever it might lead him. He knew the path ahead would be challenging, possibly isolating him further from his community. But the memory of his vision, so vivid and transformative, compelled him forward. Rabu realized that his awakening to doubt was not an end, but a beginning. The first step on a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about spirituality, faith, and the nature of reality itself. Rabu's quest for truth led him to an unexpected destination, the sands of pre-Islamic Arabia. As he delved into ancient texts and archaeological findings, a startling question emerged. What if Allah, the God he had devoted his life to, was once just one deity among many? This revelation shook Rabu to his core. He learned that in ancient Arabia, the Kaaba in Mecca served as a central shrine where various tribes gathered to worship a pantheon of deities. Allah, it seemed, was recognized as a high god among many others. This polytheistic past stood in stark contrast to the strict monotheism Rabu had preached for decades. As Rabu explored further, he discovered striking parallels between Allah and other ancient deities. The similarities in attributes and stories across different cultures made him question whether Allah was truly distinct or part of a broader tapestry of human belief. This contemplation suggested that the understanding of divine figures might be shaped more by cultural narratives than he had ever considered. The historical context of Muhammad's rejection of polytheism took on new significance for Rabu. He pondered the Prophet's proclamation of Allah as the sole deity, marking a significant shift towards monotheism. But this shift also prompted inquiries into the origins of this belief. Was it a divine revelation, as Rabu had always taught, or was it influenced by existing cultural traditions? Rabu found himself grappling with the complex evolution of monotheism in the region. The Quran's references to figures like Abraham, Moses, and Jesus suggested continuity with past religious traditions, while also seeking to redefine them within the framework of Islam. This indicated both continuity and transformation in the development of religious thought. As Rabu pieced together this historical puzzle, he felt a mix of fascination and unease. The idea that Islam might be part of a larger evolving tapestry of human belief both challenged and expanded his understanding of faith. He began to see his religion not as an isolated truth, but as a thread in the rich fabric of human spirituality. This new perspective opened up a world of questions for Rabu. If Allah's identity had evolved over time, what did that mean for the concept of divine immutability? How did this historical context affect the interpretation of Islamic teachings? Rabu found himself standing at the threshold of a potentially revolutionary understanding of his faith. As Rabu contemplated these profound implications, he realized that his journey was far from over. This exploration into ancient Arabia had not only reshaped his view of Islamic history, but had also deeply personal consequences. He now faced the challenge of integrating this new understanding into his spiritual life and grappling with what it meant for his own relationship with the divine. While awake, Rabu's mind raced with historical revelations. But as he slept, a different kind of truth began to unfold. Have you ever experienced a dream so vivid, so recurring, that it felt more like a visitation? For Rabu, these nightly visions became a portal to guidance that transcended his waking studies. Night after night, Rabu found himself in the presence of a mysterious figure. This entity radiated a calm power that Rabu had never encountered before. At first, the dreams were hazy, leaving Rabu with only a lingering sense of peace upon waking. He struggled to make sense of these nocturnal encounters, unsure if they were mere products of his subconscious or something more profound. As days passed, the dreams grew more vivid and detailed. The figure, while never fully revealing its identity, began to take on clearer form. Rabu noticed piercing eyes that seemed to look through him, filled with compassion and wisdom. The presence communicated not through words, but through a deep, emotional resonance that left Rabu feeling both comforted and challenged. The symbolism in these dreams was rich and multi-layered. Rabu often found himself in landscapes that shifted between the familiar and the otherworldly. Sometimes he stood in a vast desert, reminiscent of his homeland, but with sand that glowed with an inner light. Other times, he walked through lush gardens that seemed to pulse with life, each leaf and petal a testament to divine creation. In these dreams, Rabu experienced a profound sense of peace that contrasted sharply with the turmoil of his waking hours. Yet this serenity was coupled with an intense longing, as if his soul recognized a truth his conscious mind couldn't yet grasp. The dreams left him with a growing certainty that he was being guided towards something significant, a revelation that would reshape his understanding of spirituality and his place in the cosmos. As the dreams continued, Rabu began to sense that they were more than just nightly diversions. They felt like stepping stones on a path, each one leading him closer to a breakthrough in understanding. He started to look forward to sleep, eager to reconnect with the mysterious presence that seemed to hold the key to unlocking the questions that plagued him. The anticipation built with each passing night. Rabu felt he was on the cusp of a major revelation, standing at the threshold of a new spiritual reality. What truths awaited him in this dream realm? How would they align with or challenge his evolving beliefs? Finally, in a dream that felt more real than any before it, Rabu heard a clear voice. It didn't come from the figure he had grown accustomed to seeing, but seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the dream itself. The voice urged him to seek the truth with an open heart. These simple words resonated deeply within Rabu, feeling like both a command and a blessing. As Rabu awoke from this pivotal dream, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The message to seek truth with an open heart became his guiding principle, spurring him to look beyond the boundaries of his former beliefs. He realized that his spiritual journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, Rabu prepared himself to actively pursue new spiritual insights, wherever they might lead him. Rabu's journey took an unexpected turn when he stumbled upon a weathered Bible in the hospital's small library. The leather-bound tome seemed to call out to him, its presence both enticing and unsettling. For a moment, Rabu hesitated, his fingers hovering over the embossed cover. As a lifelong Muslim, he had always viewed the Christian scriptures with a mixture of respect and skepticism. Now, driven by an insatiable thirst for truth, he found himself drawn to this unfamiliar text. With trembling hands, Rabu opened the Bible, its thin pages rustling beneath his touch. His eyes fell upon a passage that seemed to leap from the page, John 14:6. The words burned into his consciousness, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Rabu felt a jolt of recognition, as if these words had been waiting for him all along. The verse's significance in Christian theology was not lost on Rabu. He knew that for Christians, this statement by Jesus represented the core of their faith, the belief in Christ as the exclusive path to salvation. As he pondered these words, Rabu felt a deep internal conflict brewing. How could he reconcile this bold claim with his Islamic upbringing? Rabu's mind raced with questions. Could there be truth in these words that transcended religious boundaries? He thought back to his near-death experience, to the visions that had shaken his faith to its core. The image of Muhammad in chains flashed before his eyes, a stark contrast to the promise of life offered in this verse. As Rabu grappled with these thoughts, he felt a strange sense of peace washing over him. It was as if the words on the page were speaking directly to his soul, offering a lifeline in his sea of doubt. Yet this serenity was tinged with apprehension. To consider the truth of Jesus' words would mean questioning everything he had ever believed. The anticipation of a life-changing revelation hung in the air. Rabu sensed that he stood on the precipice of a profound spiritual transformation. What if the answers he sought lay not in the teachings of his youth, but in this unexpected source? The possibility both thrilled and terrified him. That night, as Rabu drifted into a fitful sleep, his subconscious mind continued to wrestle with the implications of John 14:6. In the depths of his slumber, a vivid dream took shape. Before him stood a figure radiant with compassion and wisdom, unmistakably Jesus. The dream, Jesus extended his hand, offering not judgment but guidance. In this ethereal encounter, Rabu felt a deep sense of understanding wash over him. The dream seemed to transcend the boundaries of his waking reality, offering glimpses of a truth that defied simple categorization. As he awoke, the lingering impression of Jesus' presence filled Rabu with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. This spiritual encounter left an indelible mark on Rabu's soul. He knew that his journey of faith had taken a dramatic and irreversible turn. The words from John 14:6 echoed in his mind, challenging him to explore a path he had never before considered. As the sun rose on a new day, Rabu found himself poised on the brink of a profound spiritual transformation, ready to embrace whatever truths lay ahead. The hospital room that had once felt like a prison now seemed transformed. Rabu Ahmad, the once devout Imam, sat on the edge of his bed, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The journey that had begun with a near-death experience had led him to this moment, a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. Rabu's mind raced through the events of the past weeks. The visions of paradise and hell, the shocking sight of Muhammad in chains, and the recurring dreams of a mysterious figure had all converged to challenge everything he once held dear. But it was the words from John 14:6 that had resonated deep within his soul, offering a truth he could no longer ignore. With trembling hands, Rabu reached for the Bible that now lay on his bedside table. As he opened it, he felt a surge of emotion, a combination of fear, hope, and an overwhelming sense of peace. The decision to embrace Jesus as his Lord and Savior wasn't made lightly. It came after nights of soul-searching, tearful prayers and a profound realization that his spiritual journey had led him to this unexpected destination. The implications of his choice weighed heavily on Rabu's mind. Leaving Islam, the faith he had devoted his entire life to, meant more than just a change in belief. It meant potentially severing ties with his community, his family, and the identity he had cultivated for decades. Yet despite the daunting prospects, Rabu felt an inexplicable certainty that he was on the right path. In the days that followed, Rabu prepared for his baptism. The process, once foreign to him, now held deep significance. As he stood in the hospital's small chapel, surrounded by a handful of believers who had supported him through this transition, Rabu felt a profound sense of rebirth. The cool water that washed over him seemed to carry away years of doubt and uncertainty, replacing them with a newfound clarity. The immediate changes in Rabu's perspective were striking. The world around him seemed imbued with a new vibrancy. The scriptures he now pored over daily spoke to him with a clarity he had never experienced before. Even his outlook on his illness shifted. While the cancer still ravaged his body, Rabu found strength in his new faith, viewing his suffering as an opportunity for spiritual growth rather than a punishment. As news of Rabu's conversion began to spread, he braced himself for the potential consequences. Would his family understand? How would his former congregation react? The uncertainty of what lay ahead created a palpable tension, yet Rabu felt an underlying calm that surpassed understanding. Despite the ongoing health issues that plagued his physical body, Rabu discovered a deep sense of peace that permeated his being. It was as if the turmoil of his soul had finally been quieted, replaced by an unwavering assurance in his newfound faith. Little did Rabu know that his spiritual journey was far from over. As he lay in his hospital bed, contemplating the path that had led him to this point, he couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The transformation of his faith had been miraculous, but it seemed that the divine had yet another surprise in store for Rabu, one that would challenge the very limits of what he believed possible. In the realm of medical impossibilities, there exists a phenomenon so rare it occurs in only 1 in 60,000 cancer patients. As Rabu opened his eyes the next morning, he was about to become part of this extraordinary statistic. The change was subtle at first. Rabu noticed a slight decrease in the constant pain that had become his unwelcome companion. He dismissed it as a fleeting moment of relief, not daring to hope for more. But as the days passed, the improvements became undeniable. His appetite returned, bringing with it a surge of energy he hadn't felt in months. Rabu's doctors were perplexed. They ordered new scans and tests, expecting to find some explanation for his sudden turnaround. What they discovered left them speechless. The aggressive tumors that had ravaged Rabu's pancreas were shrinking at an unprecedented rate. It defied every medical principle they had been taught. As the medical team grappled with this inexplicable turn of events, Rabu found himself at the center of a mystery that challenged the boundaries of scientific understanding. The oncologists pored over his charts, searching for any logical explanation. Had there been an error in the initial diagnosis? Was this a delayed response to the treatments they had abandoned months ago? Each theory raised more questions than answers. For Rabu, however, the explanation was clear. He saw his healing as a profound manifestation of divine intervention, a direct result of his spiritual transformation. The timing of his recovery, coinciding so closely with his acceptance of a new faith, seemed too significant to be mere coincidence. Rabu felt a deep sense of purpose in his healing, as if he had been granted a second chance at life for a greater reason. As the days turned into weeks, Rabu's recovery continued to astound both his medical team and himself. The fatigue that had once consumed him gave way to a renewed vitality. He found himself able to walk the hospital corridors without assistance, his strength returning with each passing day. The possibility of a full recovery, once a distant dream, now seemed tantalizingly within reach. The anticipation built as Rabu underwent a final round of comprehensive tests. The results would determine the full extent of his miraculous turnaround. As he waited for the news, Rabu reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point, from a dying man clinging to familiar beliefs to a renewed soul embracing a path he never expected. When the doctor finally entered his room, the look of amazement on her face told Rabu everything he needed to know before she even spoke. The words "cancer-free" echoed in the small hospital room, defying every medical prognosis that had been given. Rabu's case would become one for the medical journals, a testament to the mysteries that still exist in the realm of health and healing. As Rabu prepared to leave the hospital, he knew that his life had been forever changed. This miracle of healing had not only restored his body, but had also cemented his newfound faith. He stood at the threshold of a new chapter, one filled with purpose and gratitude. The journey that began with a near-death experience had led him through a spiritual transformation and now culminated in a physical rebirth. Rabu stepped out into the world, ready to embrace the new life and purpose that awaited him. As Rabu Ahmad stepped out of the hospital, he knew his life would never be the same. The once revered Imam now faced a world that looked upon him with a mixture of confusion, curiosity, and in some cases, hostility. His transformation from a Muslim leader to a Christian convert sent shockwaves through his community, challenging long-held beliefs and testing the bonds of family and friendship. The initial reactions of Rabu's family were a painful reminder of the cost of his spiritual journey. His wife, children, and extended family struggled to comprehend the radical shift in his beliefs. Tears were shed, voices were raised, and the fabric of familial relationships was strained to its breaking point. Yet amidst the turmoil, Rabu found an inner peace that sustained him through the difficult conversations and heartbreaking silences. As news of his conversion spread, Rabu faced a barrage of challenges. Former colleagues in the Islamic community denounced him, labeling him a traitor to the faith. Threatening messages appeared on his phone, and whispers of ostracism followed him through the streets he once walked as a respected religious leader. The opposition was fierce, but Rabu's newfound faith proved to be an unshakable foundation. Despite the adversity, Rabu felt compelled to share his experiences. He began by speaking to small gatherings, recounting his near-death experience, the visions that challenged his beliefs, and the profound peace he found in Christianity. His words, spoken with sincerity and conviction, resonated with some while alienating others. Each testimony was a step into unknown territory, fraught with risk but driven by an unwavering sense of purpose. The impact of Rabu's story on others seeking spiritual truth was profound. Some who listened found their own beliefs challenged, sparking a journey of questioning and exploration. Others, who had long harbored doubts about their faith, saw in Rabu's experience a permission to seek answers beyond the boundaries of tradition. His narrative became a catalyst for spiritual introspection, touching lives in ways he could never have anticipated. As Rabu navigated this new chapter of his life, a sense of anticipation grew within him. He began to see his unique position as a bridge between two faiths, a living testament to the possibility of spiritual transformation. The challenges he faced, rather than deterring him, seemed to fuel a growing conviction that his journey served a greater purpose. In time, Rabu found his calling. He dedicated himself to fostering interfaith dialogue and healing, using his intimate knowledge of both Islam and Christianity to build bridges of understanding. His efforts to bring together leaders from different religious backgrounds to facilitate open and honest discussions became a beacon of hope in a world often divided by faith. As Rabu's work gained recognition, he realized that his personal transformation had far-reaching implications. His story challenged assumptions about the immutability of religious identity and opened doors for conversations about faith that transcended traditional boundaries. The journey that began in a hospital room had led him to a place where he could contribute to a broader dialogue about spirituality, tolerance, and the shared human quest for truth. Rabu Ahmad's journey from respected Imam to Christian convert placed him in a unique position, straddling two worlds that often viewed each other with suspicion. His transformation became a bridge between Islam and Christianity, offering a perspective few could claim. Rabu's efforts to foster understanding between these faiths began with small, intimate gatherings where he shared his extraordinary story. These meetings, often filled with tension and skepticism, became crucibles for honest dialogue about faith, doubt, and the search for truth. As Rabu's influence grew, so did the challenges he faced. Critics emerged from both sides of the religious divide. Some Muslims accused him of betraying his heritage, while certain Christian groups questioned the authenticity of his conversion. Navigating this minefield of criticism required a delicate balance of patience, wisdom, and unwavering conviction. Rabu found himself constantly explaining, defending, and reaffirming his journey, each conversation an opportunity to break down barriers of misunderstanding. The potential of Rabu's story to challenge religious assumptions became increasingly apparent. His experience forced people to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of faith and divine revelation. Could God speak through experiences that contradicted one's lifelong beliefs? Rabu's account of his near-death experience and subsequent spiritual awakening challenged the idea that truth was confined to a single religious tradition. It invited people to consider that the divine might work in ways that transcended human understanding and religious boundaries. The broader implications of Rabu's work in interfaith relations were profound. His willingness to engage in open, honest dialogue created spaces where people from different faith backgrounds could explore their commonalities and respectfully discuss their differences. These conversations, while sometimes difficult, laid the groundwork for greater mutual understanding and respect. Rabu's approach demonstrated that it was possible to hold firm to one's beliefs while still engaging meaningfully with those of different faiths. As Rabu continued his work, a sense of anticipation grew around the potential long-term impact of his testimony. Would his story inspire a new generation of spiritual seekers, unafraid to question and explore beyond the confines of their inherited beliefs? Could his example lead to a more nuanced and compassionate approach to interfaith dialogue? The possibilities seemed both exciting and daunting. The resolution of Rabu's journey came not in the form of universal acceptance or agreement, but in the ripple effect of his testimony. People from various backgrounds found themselves inspired to question, seek, and explore their own spiritual paths with renewed vigor. Some discovered new depths within their existing faith traditions, while others embarked on journeys of spiritual exploration similar to Rabu's. His story became a catalyst for personal transformation and a reminder that the quest for truth often leads to unexpected places. As Rabu reflected on the path that had led him from a hospital bed to a life of bridge building between faiths, he realized that his journey was far from over. The impact of his testimony continued to unfold in ways he could never have anticipated, opening doors for deeper conversations about the nature of faith, truth, and the human experience of the divine. Rabu Ahmad's journey from devout Imam to Christian convert stands as a powerful testament to the transformative nature of open-minded spiritual seeking. His story challenges us to look beyond the confines of our inherited beliefs and explore the vast landscape of spiritual truth with courage and honesty. As Rabu discovered, the path to enlightenment often leads us to unexpected places, requiring us to question long-held assumptions and embrace new perspectives. The impact of Rabu's experience extends far beyond his personal transformation. It serves as a catalyst for broader interfaith dialogue and understanding. His unique position as a bridge between Islam and Christianity opens doors for conversations that transcend traditional religious boundaries. Rabu's message, "Seek the truth with an open heart, it will find you when you are ready," resonates with those on their own spiritual quests, encouraging a deeper exploration of faith and meaning. As we reflect on Rabu's extraordinary journey, we are called to examine our own beliefs with the same level of honesty and courage. His story invites us to consider that divine truth may manifest in ways that challenge our preconceptions. Perhaps, like Rabu, we too might find ourselves standing at the threshold of a profound spiritual awakening, if only we dare to open our hearts and minds to new possibilities.